In the last video, we saw how Maruti emerged from being a dream to a driving reality which reached almost every home, how Sanjay Gandhi saw the potential for a small car and wanted to produce his own concept, how Maruti started from hand-building prototypes with two-stroke two-cylinder engines to professionally assembling the Japanese Suzuki SS80 Alto on a modern and efficient production line. Despite India being a closed economy in the 1970s and 1980s, there was a strong, trapped demand for a smaller, fuel-efficient car which could easily undercut the Ambassador and the Padmini, which were hardly efficient. But it is also a very disturbing but truthful fact that Sanjay Gandhi's death is what jump-started the Maruti project again. And what a brilliant jump-start it was. On December 14, 1983, Sanjay's 33rd birthday, the keys to the first SS80 Maruti 800 were presented by Mrs. Gandhi to Mr. Harpal Singh. Demand simply skyrocketed, shocking everybody involved in the Maruti project. But it was decided that Maruti won't follow the established norm, it would keep moving at light speed, solving all the problems HM and PAL never tried to solve. Maruti made sure the 800 was highly accessible. Showrooms to service centers were almost everywhere and anywhere in the country, and so were all the spare parts one could ever need. The same local mechanic who looked after your Ambassador and Padmini could now also look after your Maruti. And working on a Maruti was the easiest job an Indian mechanic could ever have. Coming back to the speed Maruti adopted to establish and run itself was beyond belief. Two entirely new cars and a brand new generation of the 800. All in 3 years. Sanjay Gandhi's company was still following his principles of bringing essential positive changes quickly. But Maruti's speed of becoming successful was also signifying a huge change in the Indian economy. Now more than ever, urban India wanted to rapidly adopt the modern lifestyle. They wanted new, high-quality products in their everyday life. This was also the time the Soviet Union was starting to fall apart. The Chernobyl disaster was the first large crack. By the late 1980s, India had been running on borrowed time. The license Raj was now proving to be a seething boiler that was about to burst. Maruti, now running at almost the full capacity, decided to finally go head-to-head with HM and PAL by launching its own three-box sedan. A type of body style nobody was expecting from Maruti, or even if it was expected, it could prove a hard task to convince an Ambassador, Padmini buyer, or the newly launched Contessa 118 NE buyer. Up until now, Maruti was largely known for the 800 and Sanjay Gandhi's original small car idea. But like him, Maruti wasn't afraid to tread waters it didn't know. And therefore, this is why the 1990s were a significant decade for India and the entire world. Because this was the decade in which Maruti was starting to capture the Indian market at large, and India would turn a new page in running its economy. 1990s. A modern India. By the end of the 1980s, it was becoming more and more clear that the Indian economy needed to open itself for foreign investment. Because India never really focused and spent on research and development and corruption being inherently rampant, the PSU sector produced things which were never focused for exports. They were never made with a mentality that the products could represent India outside of its own land. Japan had already mastered the game of exports. They just took what already existed and made it better. But India, being a big country but with a majority of population that was, and is, deluded in religion, tradition, and senseless superstition, simply never cared. All everybody wanted was a secure government job where they didn't want to use their brain and basically get paid for sitting around. Something innovative, creative, beautiful, and radically new is treated as something bad. Starting a business became the ultimate target for people to throw rocks at you. It becomes a taboo thought, and people of India simply care way too much about what other people think. Plus, for all the businesses that did exist, due to the license Raj, they couldn't take steps towards research and expansion on their own. It would mean another license, another delay. But Maruti had decided that it won't run itself like Hindustan Motors and Premier Automobiles Limited and Standard Motor Products of India. Maruti wanted new cars, so various new segments could be created, just like in any other modern economy-focused country, all culminating into a large, dominating market share in the future. So with the 800, now the undisputed leader of the small car segment, the Omni, which competed fiercely with the commercial van segment and finding few private buyers, and the Gypsy, which went head-to-head with the Mahindra Jeeps and proved much more powerful and agile. Maruti decided to finally venture into a segment which had always existed after the mid-1960s, the sedan segment. By the end of 1989, India had 4 sedans: HM with its Ambassador Mark IV and the still new but inherently outdated Contessa, PAL with the Padmini, which still looked the same, and the Fiat 124-derived 118NE. Maruti had already seen the success of the Suzuki Cultus in Japan and wanted an Indian version which could help them target this premium segment. In Japan, the sedan version of the Cultus already existed, which was known as the Esteem, but while the Japanese version came with bigger 1300 and 1600 engines, Maruti decided to test the waters first by using the same 1-liter engine found in the Gypsy. Launched in November 1990, the Maruti 1000 was Maruti entering the sedan segment for the first time. Unlike the aged competition, the 1000 was sleeker with a flush and almost streamlined 3-box shape, which also came with integrated plastic bumpers. Headlights and taillights also integrated and flush-fitting. The 1000 instantly looked way more modern than anything HM and PAL had. It was certainly much more aerodynamic. Priced way above 3 lakhs rupees, it was the most expensive car on sale in the Indian car market at the time. Naturally, when people saw something like this in front of the aging competition, demand for the Maruti 1000 simply outstripped the supply. Again, Maruti was not expecting so much buzz. For the first time, a computerized lottery was put in place to allot the small number of thousands produced. Because it was the most expensive car in the still-emerging car market of India, it was instantly treated as a status symbol. Some even said that this was the car by the elite for the elite. But soon, criticisms came solely about the engine. The 970 cubic centimeters inline 4 engine only made 47 brake horsepower, while the entire car weighed above 800 to 900 kilograms. This meant when the car was loaded with passengers, it felt underpowered and the air conditioning was not able to function properly. But because there were restrictions of the license Raj, Maruti could not improve the 1000 with a bigger engine. The 1000, like the 800, had to be localized, which was another time-consuming process. But Maruti wanted to focus on catering the masses and increasing its production capacity. This meant keeping the 1800, Omni, and Gypsy as they were because demand for them was constantly present and spending time finalizing another new Suzuki to assemble and produce, which would create a segment that never existed. All of this was in tune with an upcoming change whose time had come. 1991, India finally opens. Maruti decides to run. By 1991, India was in a very weak spot. Its socialistic model had now completely jammed not only the private sector, but also the public sector companies. Decades of protectionism meant India had a severe balance of payments crisis on its hands. Because India did not have a strong industrial base, which created international products for exports, India had always relied on imports, especially when the country wanted to produce something new. India only had weeks of foreign reserves left, and a complete economic collapse was proving to be inevitable. It was bound to happen. The Indian government, with Narasimha Rao as the Prime Minister and Dr. Manmohan Singh as the Finance Minister, finally decided to open up the Indian economy to secure an IMF bailout with the country's gold taken as collateral. Suddenly, all the shackles, all the restrictions towards what and how a business could do things were lifted overnight, And when the foreign investment came, it bought all the great things of capitalism, which instantly made the lives of people easier and exciting. And India embraced capitalism like a glove fitting perfectly on its hands. Economic growth started to increase, and by 1993, India was preparing to rapidly modernize itself. New products, new services meant new jobs, which meant tons of incentives and possibilities to make more money. A more powerful middle class and its subsegments. Maruti decided to launch another new small car, which would sit above the 800 and will be much better built, powerful, fun to drive, and have almost zero engine noise. It would also focus on export. The Zen, with its jelly bean styling and a completely new, brilliantly refined and powerful G10B engine that only got louder once the revs climbed, proved to be another success story for Maruti. The 800 at this point now felt completely old and underpowered. The Zen was also bigger, roomier, and had butter-smooth mechanicals underneath. The gearbox, in particular, is something which delighted everybody. Quick, precise throws that always slotted onto the gear you desired, while the clutch proved to be light and full of feedback. Same story with the engine, suspension, and chassis. The Zen was faster and more nimble than the 800. It also looked much more desirable. It sat beautifully between the entry-level 800 and the range-topping 1000 by combining all the positive aspects of the two. Combining the higher quality ergonomics and build of the 1000 while retaining the small size philosophy of the 800 but being more rounded. In its 13-year production run, Maruti Suzuki managed to sell over 8.8 lakh units. But Maruti had not forgotten about the 1000 and its criticisms, so after a year, Maruti finally came up with the more powerful version of the 1000, now renamed the Esteem. The Esteem retained the same styling of the 1000, but under the bonnet was now a larger version of the engine found in the Zen. The G13BA, with 1.3 liters of displacement, now pushed 64 brake horsepower as compared to 1000's 47 brake horsepower. Because of the bigger engine, the Esteem was able to equip itself with power steering, power windows, and a more powerful air conditioning system. Performance and handling were drastically improved as it had the best power-to-weight ratio in its segment, and the Esteem was rapidly adopted into the Indian rally scene. In its first year, Maruti Suzuki managed to sell over 30,000 Esteems, while in its entire 13-year production cycle, it sold between 2.5 lakh to 3 lakh units, making it a time-tested favorite like the Zen in India. Amazing, isn't it? For a car company which started from scratch, and by the end of 1990s was only almost 18 years old, had managed to completely capture the affordable section of the Indian car market and ruthlessly defeated the old giants like HM and PAL. Maruti Suzuki's success in the 90s also incentivized other foreign brands like Honda, Toyota, and Hyundai to enter the Indian car market. General Motors came back by launching the Opel brand in India, while Ford came back through a joint venture with Mahindra. It really goes to show you what can be achieved when the right actions are taken at the right time. Change is necessary, no matter how uncomfortable it feels, because the benefits surpass all the doubts. What started as a 60-40 partnership between the government of India and Suzuki Motors in the 1980s now became a perfect 50-50 joint venture as Suzuki decided to increase its stake in the early 1990s. Something Suzuki was skeptical about doing when Maruti was being recreated from Sanjay Gandhi's dream. And to think about the consequences of Maruti Suzuki's success. It made Gurgaon what it is today, while Noida became the preferred choice of foreign brands to set up their factories and offices in. Indians finally had cars they always wanted. Cars that were modern, light, quick, fuel-efficient, spacious. Cars which didn't cost a fortune to buy and maintain. Stay tuned for the next part, where we find out how Maruti consolidates its true power from the start of the 21st century. A power it still holds today in 2026. If you have made it this far, I'd like to thank you for giving your time and attention. You are among the very few who still hold a robust attention span these days. And it's great. It's something which is needed the most today. Indeed, the voice is AI, but the script comes from the heart. In case you had missed part 1, you can check the link in description. Only like and subscribe if you genuinely like the video. Thank you.